So before we get into the sermon, just a little bit about, the value of like singing that song, O Come, Emmanuel, which is decades upon decades old and has been sung by Christians, all this time as we wait for the second coming of Jesus Christ. Our voices sort of combine with theirs historically, and together as the universal church, the church here on earth and the church in heaven, there's a connection, a cohesion, if you will. And then also in the very same way, as awkward as it is to do the psalm and to go back and forth, the psalms are, thousands of years old. They are inspired by God, and individuals who were having an experience of God have written those down for generations. And we, as a people, sort of connect with it, but at the same time that we're speaking the words, we have to recognize that the words are also inspired by God. And so it is important, I believe, as a community from time to time to go through the activity of us speaking words together about what it is that we believe, not for the sake of the words, but for the one who has inspired them. So I appreciate your patience and the figuring out of the numbers of what page this thing was on. Okay, so for those of you, I was told a couple years ago, that the one thing about my sermons that people are really disturbed about is I don't have a title. Okay, that usually if you give a title, it's a good idea because it keeps people focused. Okay, now you could really tell how much I really cared because I really never had a title to, the sermons. Anyway, however, today, and for all of those you at home who have been asking for a title, the title of today's sermon is How Cooking a Turkey is Like the Season of Advent. Okay? Now, if you want to sit down, and I'll give you a minute to write all that down, but how cooking a turkey is like the season of Advent. All right? Everyone happy now? Great. I'm going to sit down. We're done. That's that. No. So, I don't know about you. I have a struggle with Thanksgiving. It's days of preparation. Days. You go and you fight over the turkey in the store, and you go over and you try to grab the last couple of cans of cranberry sauce because you just know that people at your table are going to be really upset, and you try to get the one brand that everyone likes, because if you bring out the other brand, they call you cheap because you got the cheaper brand of cranberry sauce. You're laughing because you know this is true. Then you go through the whole thing of trying to find the exact right type of bread stuffing that you need, because it comes in all different shapes and sizes and flavors now. You have all this stuff, so you try to find the right one, and of course, you need 4 bags. They only have 3. So then you're trying to figure out exactly what's the other one you could add and put into that. So they mix it all together so that all this works together. Then, of course, there's the whole thing about the pies, and by us, there's a farm that makes amazing pies. The problem is you have to order the things a couple weeks in advance. Don't even think about showing up on the same day. And if you go, they give you a time slot where you literally, I swear, you drive up. They have lanes. They have lanes fully staffed. There's 20 people on the property, and there are U-Haul trucks it's literally a farm, and you drive up, you give them your name, they go over, they pull the stuff out of the U-Haul trucks, they come over, which is really cool. You just pop open the back of your car, and mine has the little button that you push the button, and the thing goes up. This is all prepaid. They put the pies in, you push the little button, the door closes, and you drive off. It's like the best part of Thanksgiving is picking up the pies, right? But you do all of this work, and then and this is where it comes in about how cooking a turkey is the season of Advent. You get the bird, and there's all this work to do in the beginning, right? You have to prepare the bird, you got to season it. Everyone argues about what kind of seasoning, My wife's family, they used to soak the thing in rum the night before, okay? we had one seriously junk bird by the time we got to Thanksgiving. That thing was soaking entirely all night. That was one tradition, and I remember because it would sit in this big bucket that you hope was cleaned out before they put the bird in, but there would be this big bucket, and there'd be this whole bottle of Bacardi rum, and then there's all these seasonings. You put all this stuff in, and the thing, of course, has to, sort of sit there, and it doesn't do anything. I guess it just marinates, and then, of course, the next day you're taking it out, and so you prepare your bird. And have you noticed that despite what the directions tell you, 350, 400 degrees, people argue about what temperature and for how long, there is a 1-800-Butterball phone that you could call and ask them. And I've never done that, but I've always found that to be entertaining, and we probably should one year just to see what they say. But anyway, everyone's got their idea about how long and how you do this and whatever, right? And so you put the bird in. Now, my way, as scary as that is, I am the least of the skilled cookers of turkey. I leave it covered, and then like the last half hour, 40 minutes, I take the cover off so it could brown. Right? I see some of you shaking your heads. Good. I'm not the only crazy person. Now, I don't know what this is. Once you put it in, and it's 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever, 3 hours or that it needs, right? Once you put it in, you notice how many times you stop by to visit the turkey? You ever notice? I don't know what that is, but something inside, you could be sitting watching the ball game, and in the middle of the ball game, you're like, oh, we should go look at the turkey. So you get up and you go over, right? I'm not the only crazy person. You go over and you look at Reynolds wrap. You're staring at a Reynolds wrap top of a bird. It's not like it's waving back at you. It's not like in any way, shape, or form it's entertaining you. It's just there, and it's wrapped. And I've been told it's not a good thing to keep opening it, because if you do something about the moisture and whatever, okay. So you walk by. If your oven's like mine, it has a light button, because you really want to be able to see the Reynolds wrap as bright as you possibly can. You hit the button and you stare at this thing, and it's just sitting there, right? And you keep doing that back and forth, and then as you're sitting, it starts to happen in the house. There's a second level to this, and it's the smell. It's the smell of the turkey cooking. And the smell of the turkey cooking gets you excited, because hey, first of all, I'm doing this right. In my case, I'm doing this right because the thing's actually cooking, which is really hopeful for everyone else who's coming over to eat. And then, you get to that 45-minute mark, and you go over really proud. You pop it down, you take the Reynolds off, and you take a look at it, and it's just sort of sitting there, and it's very happy about the fact that it's cooking. And then you take it, you put it back in the oven, and of course you leave the light on, and you find that you spend more time visiting it now that it's uncovered than you were before. Advent is about the anticipation that we feel as we're waiting for the turkey to cook. That sensation of it's coming, it will arrive, it will be cooked. And we will take it out, we will serve it, we will enjoy it. Advent is meant for the Christian church to have that sensation of anticipation that something is in process, something's happening. Now, this gospel, from Matthew has placed these words into Jesus' mouth right before Jesus enters Jerusalem, is arrested and crucified. So this is one of those times where Jesus is with his friends, and it's one of the last times he's with his friends. And as he's with them, he is sort of laying this out, that look, what's about to happen is going to absolutely overwhelm you, but there will be a time when these things will happen. Now, if you ever wondered where the whole concept and the whole theology of the rapture very big Protestant thing, especially evangelicals, big thing about the rapture, the end of days, the rapture that is meant to take place. It comes out of this Matthean gospel and this section, because why? There are ordinary people doing ordinary things. One is taken, one is left. One is taken, one is left. And so the concept, and this is the only place in Scripture where this exists. It doesn't exist in Revelation. But the concept of a rapture, a coming where people are plucked. The thing that I have always sort of argued with people who believe in the rapture, and I'm not one of those, but for people who believe in the rapture, I'm like, okay, so please explain to me, the one who is taken is in a better situation than the one who is left? And they're like, what do you mean? Well, just because you're taken, it doesn't mean that you're selected or that's a good thing. You could be being plucked out of everyone else. And of course they don't like that, because they like the sensation of the fact that if you're going to be taken, that it's God taking you. But the fact is, Matthew doesn't say anything about that, nor does Jesus specify. The point of the passage for Jesus is there will be people doing ordinary things. They will be working in the field, they will be grinding mill, and as they're doing ordinary things is when Jesus will arrive and Jesus' second coming will come. My return will come at a time that you're doing your ordinary things and you won't even realize or expect that it is about to come. But there is clearly here in Matthew and in the other Gospels a promise that despite the death, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus, that there is going to be a time where Jesus returns. And this Advent season for this year, this is year A that we're using in the liturgical season of A, B, and C. We're on year A this year. If you look at the readings, it's really about this second coming as Jesus revisiting. And you might ask yourself, well, what does that have to do with the birth of Jesus in the manger? And it's all about, again, expectation. It's all about anticipation. Tom read from Isaiah, and Isaiah says there that there will come a time where there will be no more wars. Isaiah writes this 4,000 years ago, that there will be no more wars, that weapons will be used as farming instruments because there will no longer be a need for it. I was watching The Wizard of Oz the other day, okay? Not Wicked, the first Wizard of Oz. I never saw this before until this time in watching this movie this time around. You remember when they all come back and they have, I believe at this point, they have the Wicked Witch's broom. And they want to go in and see the wizard. And the guy who is standing at the door with the big hat, and he's all dressed in green, he says to them, no, come back tomorrow. The wizard will see you tomorrow. And Dorothy's like, hey, what are you talking about? I've done what you've asked me to. I have the Wicked Witch's broom. Look at what it is that the guy who is sending her away is carrying in his hand. He's carrying a musket. He's carrying a weapon. And at the top of the weapon are flowers. It's the first time I ever saw it. But clearly, the writer of The Wizard of Oz was trying to explain that in their culture, there is no longer a need for weapons, because this weapon now is really just an ornament on him, and it has flowers on the end, which symbolizes a sense of peace within Oz. I never saw that before, ever. And I got really excited because Isaiah, Jesus, they both talk about a time when what we know and what we experience on the face of this planet, war, difficulties, distress, divisions among people, army against army, kingdom against kingdom, that there will come a time, there is going to be a time, there is going to be a realization when all of this is put to peace. When all of this is run and operated by the justice, the mercy, and the generosity of God. And Jesus' audience was waiting for this. We look at our news and we say, yes, this hasn't, there's part of the prophecy of Isaiah that hasn't been fulfilled yet. God has spoken this in time. Isaiah the prophet recognizes this and declares that there will come a time where there will be ultimate peace. And yet, with Jesus, this does not come to pass. There is a promise of a second return. This is why our Jewish brothers and sisters don't believe that Jesus is anything more than a very great prophet. It's because the fulfillment of Isaiah, this prophecy that we heard today, did not come to pass. The world's still a mess. And though we as Christians understand that Jesus' freedom and redemption was really more about our shackles on the inside of our souls and the transformation of that, for our Jewish brothers and sisters, it's very much about, no, there has to be the physical fulfillment, the actual implementation of peace on the face of the earth. And that only comes and happens when God comes and makes all that take place. So we also are in still, as Christians, a time of anticipation, waiting for the completeness of the prophecy to be fulfilled, the completeness of God's work here on earth to be fulfilled. And so this season of Advent, you and I are asked to keep walking by and taking a look at the turkey in the oven, to be looking at what it is that is going to come about, to be focused on that, to anticipate that, and to feel that same anticipation for Jesus' second coming. This week, your homework, I'm not going to ask you to cook another turkey. I think you've all done enough of that. But your homework this week, I think, is just to do that. What exactly is it that you believe about the second coming? Is it a rapture? Is it simply that Jesus will return, or is it just symbolic language in the scriptures? All three can be argued for. All three can be presented and sustained and supported. But somewhere along the way, something tells me that Jesus' words about a return are true enough, that Jesus is worthy to be trusted. He has integrity, and as such, his promise that there is a return is something that I believe this season of Advent should refocus us to, that the world that we live in is controlled by a God who loves and cares for us, who has stepped into time and has saved our souls so that we could be with him for all eternity, but also has promised that the world will fall under his rule of goodness and love.